In this AP Calculus multiple choice example, we're starting off by being given this function here, f of x equals 3x minus 5 times 4x plus 7 over 2x minus 5 squared. And then they want us to find the line y equals b. They want us to find the horizontal asymptote to this graph. And so to do that, we just have to first know what it means to be a horizontal asymptote. So a horizontal asymptote, you're going to find those. Those are when we take the limit as x approaches infinity of a function. And whatever the answer is out here, that is, I'm just going to call it HA, that is your horizontal asymptote. Or the limit as x approaches negative infinity of f of x. So you've got to go in both directions. And whatever you get out of there, that is going to be your horizontal asymptote. Well, first thing to know about a problem like this with horizontal asymptotes and limits at infinity style problems is the dirty secret is there's only three options on the way these things can work out. When we go through and talk through them, once you know them, it's pretty easy to tell what your answer is without a lot of work. So option one, when we're going to do this, is what I refer to as a top-heavy situation. So when you're going to find these limits at infinity, what you're always looking to find is you're looking to find what I refer to as the dominant term. Usually that is going to be your highest power of x. And why that we call that the dominant term is because for very, very large values of x, as x heads to infinity or as x heads to negative infinity, the part of your function that's going to take over the behavior is going to be that highest power of x. Because as the numbers get larger, the more times you take that x to that large number, that's going to sort of dwarf everything else going on in that problem. So when I say top heavy, what I mean is that the dominant term would show up on top. So if you had something like limit as x approaches infinity of 7x to the fifth minus 9x to the third over 5x to the fourth plus 8x squared, if our dominant term, which is x to the fifth in this situation, shows up on top, then what's going on here is you really have the top is growing out of control. It's headed up to infinity, and there's nothing the bottom can do to stop it. And so the answer to a problem like that is infinity. And when it goes to infinity, that would be no horizontal asymptote. We're not headed to any specific value. This function is just growing and growing and growing over time. Then option two in these situations is the flipped version of that. That's what I refer to as bottom heavy. So if our dominant term is on the bottom of the fraction, so we'll just flip what we were just looking at. 5x to the fourth plus 8x squared is up top. 7x to the fifth minus 9x to the third is on bottom. So here our dominant term is again this x to the fifth, but it's on the bottom of our fraction. And so what that means is the bottom is blowing up. It's getting huge, and there's nothing the top can do about it. It's a tiny little number in comparison. And so what that really is that's like a decimal point with a ton of zeros after it. And so what that is, as you get bigger and bigger, is this thing is headed to zero. So what that's telling us is that y equals 0 would be our horizontal asymptote if we are in a bottom-heavy situation. Always, always, always. Then the third option here is what I just call balanced. So we have equal dominant terms on top and bottom. So limit as x heads to infinity of like 5x to the fifth plus 8x squared over 7x to the fifth minus 9x cubed. So here we have equal dominant terms on top and bottom. So they're both growing. The top and the bottom are growing at the same pace. The only difference is the top is always getting multiplied by 5 and the bottom is always getting multiplied by 7. So when you're in a balanced situation, the coefficients of those terms are going to end up becoming your horizontal asymptote. So on any horizontal asymptote problem, all we need to do is say which of these three situations are we looking at. So let's go look at our specific problem. We're dealing with this function right here. So we want to know what is the limit as x heads to infinity of 3x minus 5 times 4x plus 7 over 2x minus 5 squared. So to find the highest power of x, you kind of need everything to be multiplied out, and you need to have everything added and subtracted. Well, we don't need to do the complete FOIL process on something like this. What you want to remind yourself of is the highest power from this side times the highest power from that side. That's going to give us our highest power of x. So I don't need to FOIL the complete thing out. I just need to multiply those. 3x times 4x would get me 12x squared. Anything else I multiply together is going to give me a power that's smaller than that. Looking at the bottom here, so this is 2x minus 5 squared, which is really the same as 2x minus 5 times 2x minus 5. So again, what I want to do here is just grab those highest powers from each, and when I multiply those together, that's going to give me my dominant term for the bottom. So on the bottom, my dominant term would be 4x squared. Now we have something to look at. So we'd say, which of my three options do I have? Well, I've got an x squared on top and an x squared on bottom for my dominant term, so I'm looking at a balanced setup. And so whenever it's a balanced setup, then it's the coefficients that give me my answer. So this would be 12 over 4, which I could simplify down to being 3. So y equals 3 would be my horizontal asymptote in this situation, which would be option C. So the key to horizontal asymptote problems or limits as x approaches infinity problem is just knowing that all of them boil down to three options. Where is your dominant term? Is it a top-heavy situation, a bottom-heavy situation, or a balanced situation? And those are the only three ways these can work. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please click that like button and subscribe. And also share it with your friends and anyone else you know who might be crying about an upcoming AP Calc test. You can find more videos from me, more sample AP Calc questions, and my complete AP Calc study guide over at my website, apcalcprep.com. Have a great one.